The Making of Wolf, Part 2. Before we go any further, I just want to say that I'm all too painfully aware of how absurdly self-indulgent this is.
I found it incredibly indulgent. You know, he really is. He's one of the most indulgent filmmakers. He really is.
Keyword here
and
is
without
indulgent.
And I'm embarrassed for myself. I don't know how I wind up doing this, but
He's spitting on my neck. You know, he spits on my neck when he talks.
It's ridiculous. I mean, here you got this still largely unknown musician who's going to make a multi-part series of an album that failed 42 years ago. Only on YouTube, right? But I'm going to do it anyway because I'm already in, already committed. Right, the first segment's already uploaded and is done. You don't let it be said that I'm not self-aware, because I'm painfully self-aware. We are here to deliver the post-mortem for this album. As you say of someone who has passed away, you know, let's not be sad. Let's celebrate this thing. Now, you know what, people, I am grateful that people still remember this thing, and are still discovering it. And if this helps them discover it, why not? I mean, you know, everything is the 80s all over again. So maybe this was 42 years ahead of its time. I doubt that, but you know, we can pretend, can't we? So, having said that, let's go on with The Making of Wolf, Part 2. So a couple of days go by, and I get a call from Vigoda. He's saying, "I got you a deal. Let's get coffee, and I'll tell you about it." Vigoda used to love to sit and drink coffee for hours and talk. He was one of the most interesting people I ever met in my life, and we very quickly became friends. He was an extraordinary person in every sense of the word. I mean, he had such a brilliant mind, Harvard Law School. But he was interested in so many things, and everybody, he asked me a million questions. He wanted to know all about my family, you know, what my father did and everything. And he was just so cool. And very eccentric too. He looked like Marty Feldman. He had this wild curly hair, and his eyes kind of popped out of his head. He tooled around in this red Corvette that Stevie had bought him. And he was a vegetarian. He lived pretty much on grapefruit and sunflower seeds. And he had giant bags of sunflower seeds, and he pops handfuls of them in his mouth, and he's spitting everywhere. He was a character, to put it short, but he was just brilliant. And the closest I had to a manager in my career was Vigoda. He advised me on all things, even after he retired. And I was moving on into like niche music that wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't have even asked him to work on a deal for it because it wouldn't have been worth his time. He was just so much fun. He was a great man and a great friend. We used to talk on the phone for hours about all kinds of things. Anyway, what happened? He calls me up, and we get coffee, or maybe we were just driving around. He used to just like to just drive around and talk, you know. So we'd spend hours just driving down Sunset Boulevard all the way practically to Malibu and back, just talking, getting to know each other. Well, what happened is he had my cassette in his car stereo, in that Corvette, that red Corvette that Stevie bought him. And the cassette got stuck in the player. How's this for serendipity, right? He couldn't get it out. And because there's a cassette engaged in there, he couldn't even listen to the radio. And he pressed the eject button, it wouldn't came out. Later, he figured out how to get it out. But anyway, every time he's in the car, he's hearing the same 5 songs over and over. He said, but you know what? Every time I heard them, I liked them more. So he's driving around on a Sunday afternoon, and he decides, just out of the blue, to drive up to Dick Griffey's house in Woodland Hills, way up above Encino. And he goes and knocks on Dick Griffey's door unannounced, doesn't call, right? And Griffey was surprised to see him. He said, "Oh, Johannan, well, I've got some people over." He was having an afternoon soiree, and Vigoda said, "I got this tape I want you to listen to," and Griffey knew him and knew that it must be something worth listening to. He said, "Well, bring it in." And Johannan said, "I can't. It's stuck in my car. You got to come sit in the car." So Dick Griffey leaves his guests, goes and sits in Vigoda's Corvette in the driveway and listens to my demo and offers him a deal on the spot. And Vigoda says he wants to be a producer too. It's got to be an artist and a producer deal. And Dick said, okay. And that was, to me, it was mind-boggling because that part happened fast. Building up to that didn't seem so fast, but getting there, and it was ridiculous. And Dick Griffey turned out to be a good match because, like I said, I was trying to do a Quincy Jones type album where the producer is the artist, and I had 2 songs on there that didn't even have lyrics, but they were intended to be sung. But Dick was a real record man, and he could hear that. I had a lot of respect for Dick, and I was sad when I heard that he passed away too young. He was another one of those characters that you'll never forget. Larger than life. I mean, I had tons of respect for him. Berry Gordy accomplished the unimaginable to create Motown in the days of Jim Crow and create such a huge empire just from the force of his will. And the other guy who created a black-owned record company out of nowhere was Dick Griffey. So, I mean, hats off to those guys because they are fighting a headwind to do that kind of thing. And they did. But Dick had ears, and he built up a good label with the Whispers and Lakeside and Dynasty, the Silvers, and so many different artists. Shalimar. Dick was the one who found Jon Gibson. Because by coincidence, again, I said this is like random, serendipitous things, chances coming together. But Dick calls me in, and he wants me to hear a demo of a singer that he'd found. And he put it on, and I said, yeah, this guy will work. I like it. And Dick just had this grin on his face, like he was trying to fool me. And then he turned over the picture, and it was Jon Gibson. And he thought I was going to be like, oh, it's a white guy, but I don't even think like that. Didn't matter to me. I just knew that John's voice would work. And And it did. Not only did it work, but then I met with Jon and discovered that he was a songwriter as well. So I played him the demos to So Shy and Wake Up. And I said, you want to try to write some lyrics to these? And he said, yeah. And he came up with them quick, and they were good. Real good. The use of my famous friends on the album was very Machiavellian on my part. Because I knew, it's like, you know, who is this guy? Who ever heard of this keyboard player, right? So I wanted their names on the album. I knew that would help give it legitimacy. But it was legitimate because I had worked with both of them. And I considered them both friends. And there's just background roles. I didn't try to exploit it. I wanted their names. I wanted their participation. I left that space in the song Soarin' for Stevie's harmonica solo. Deliberately. I didn't have a placeholder in there. I didn't have a plan B. I would have come up with one if he didn't come play on it. But he did. And I'm grateful to that. That solo that he pulled out of nowhere is better than the melody I wrote for that song. That's why he's a wonder. The funny part about that story is the night that we recorded that, I got held up somehow, and I kept him waiting. That was a twist. He was waiting for me instead of the other way around. Usually you wait for Stevie, as Pearl Jam documented with the song they put out recently, Waiting for Stevie. It's what you do, you know? Hey, he's worth waiting for, I'll tell you that. But I made him wait, and I'm glad that he did. And he played an amazing solo on that. He's just such an incredible musician. And then the thing with Michael, yeah, I wanted his name on there because he's Michael Jackson, for crying out loud. But also, Papa Was a Rolling Stone was like one of the key Motown songs that everybody heard. And I just genuinely loved that song. And Michael was one of the OG Motown artists, right? With his brothers, with the Jackson 5, all the way back to ABC and I Want You Back and all that stuff. So it made sense to put him on there. And a lot of people have I've seen the comments that people leave on every version of that gets put on YouTube. Someone says, I don't hear Michael Jackson singing on that. Well, no, you're not going to hear him because the first thing you learn if you're singing with a vocal group is to blend. And he's singing with the Waters, who were the go-to background vocal group back in those days. You know, you want good background vocals, you call the Waters. So I called the Waters, and I hadn't met them before that, but I knew that they were the guys that you call, and it's going to be a piece of cake getting good background vocals. I didn't tell them that Michael was going to be singing with them because I didn't want them to be disappointed in case something came up and it didn't happen. So when they came to the studio that afternoon, I said, I invited a person to come sing with you. And they said, okay, yeah, that's fine. And I didn't tell them who it was. And they were blown away when Michael walked in. But they knew him. They sang on Off the Wall. But Michael blended with them perfectly because he's trained to do that. And no, you're not going to hear his voice on either of those songs because he was blending in with a group. And if I had tried to make it some kind of thing like, you know, Papa Was a Rolling Stone featuring Michael Jackson, believe me, it wouldn't have happened. You know, that it would have complicated it right out the window. But Mike loved the idea of just coming and being like a studio singer for the day. And he showed up, he's wearing a Mickey Mouse t-shirt and jeans, the way he always dressed for the studio. And he had a ball doing it. And they knocked out Papa Was a Rolling Stone in no time. And Michael said, "Is there another song we can sing?" So I told the engineer, put up So Shy. Because it had that part that's on there. But I hadn't planned to do it that day. But then here they are. Yeah, let's get that done. So the La La La's were covered in style. Because Michael wanted to keep going. They did Papa Was a Rolling Stone in 5 minutes time, as long as it took. We didn't have to stop and start over or anything. Probably one take. But Michael, you know, he loved just being one of the guys. And if I tried to do a featuring Michael Jackson thing, that would have been something a totally different thing. But he liked just being a session singer that day, and we had fun. And the funny thing about that is, when Michael and I were working on the demo to Say, and Mike came over to my house, I played him the track to So Shy that didn't have any vocals on it or anything. And he started dancing. Man, this is a good thing. I mean, he loved the groove. And so I started pitching it to him. I said, you know what? It needs lyrics. Do you want it? And then he got kind of shy, and he was like, oh, shucks. And he said no. So who knew that he'd wind up singing background vocals? Odd coincidences abound, you know. And that was one of them. So we had Michael and we had Stevie, and then Jon Gibson. He was young. He was like 19, 20 years old. But he was real talented. And I heard some of the songs that he wrote. And Dick Griffey wound up signing him. I could use him. I got first crack at using him on my record. So I gave him Wake Up and So Shy. And he wrote the lyrics to it in no time, just in a matter of days, and did a really good job. I really liked it. He came into the studio and sang, and it was really good. And we got to be friends, and I wound up producing his first solo album. And then later, a few years after that, I produced one of his contemporary Christian albums. We had fun doing that. There was absolutely no money in that, but creatively it was a good time. The other guest vocalist was Crystal Blake, who I had met through Stevie. She was married to Quill Fudge, who was Stevie's cousin, and they were just part of the crew that was always down at Stevie's studio, part of the extended Stevie family. And Crystal and I became friends, and she's a good singer. So I asked her if she would be interested in singing that, and she was, yeah, definitely. And she did a great job on that. Well, it had that great, you know, Stevie's solo on it, you know, and that song really is probably the most Stevie-influenced thing on the whole album, just the way the chords, the chord progression. That song is very Stevie-inspired. I'll just say that. It was okay. It's okay to be inspired by people, and for that to show. There's influences. Nobody came from, nobody came fully realized out of Jupiter's forehead or whatever that is. We all come as a result of different influences and who you listen to and what you did coming up, that kind of thing. But the fact that this thing exists, as you can see, it was like a lot of random things came together, but they were brought together because I kept pushing forward. I was obsessed. I didn't really choose this idea so much as it chose me. Kind of like being a musician chose me. I didn't just all of a sudden wake up and say I want to be a professional musician. It chose me. I played my first gig and got paid for it. I was 15, and I said, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And it's funny because, when you're a kid, starting, I think in first grade, they start asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And all the kids say, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a fireman. I didn't know what I wanted to be. Every year I said something different just to get them off my back. Because I had no idea. No one does, right? Who winds up knowing? But finally, I'm 15. I decide, I know what I want to be. I'm going to be a musician. And then everybody was like, no, you don't want to do that. As if I had said, I want to be a juggler. I want to be that guy that spins the plates on the Ed Sullivan Show. Everybody was like, no, not that, because, but it chose me. There wasn't anything else I could have done. I would have been miserable. I didn't get rich being a musician, but I made a living. And that's an accomplishment, just in and of itself. When I joined the Local 47 of the Musicians Union, the American Federation of Musicians, the guy who took in my papers gave me a tour of the building, and he said, only 3% of our members make a living playing music. And I was kind of like, yikes, But that was in 78 or 79. Imagine what that percentage is now. 0.01, now that we're in the great age of micropayments. I left a message on here for Stevie. I said, Stevie Wonder, you helped me more than you'll ever know. Your inspiration, guidance, and friendship have been invaluable. I'm proud to have attended the University of Stevie Wonder. And yeah, I still feel that way after all this time. How lucky was I, and still am, to have his friendship and to be living in the same planet as he is. He's the most amazing person I've ever known. So that's enough of this, all right? Enough. But I'm glad that people asked about it. I'm glad that people still like it. This album is old. I'm old. Jackie's old. But it still sounds good to me, and I'm glad that I can listen to it. And even though it's silly and self-indulgent to make a multi-part series about this dumb thing, I'm glad that people are interested. And I hope I haven't bored everybody to death with it. But people do seem to genuinely still like it to this day. And maybe this will help people find their way to it that haven't heard it before. So there it is. So as always, thanks for watching.